Good morning. Is this thing on? No, it's still processing on my side. Hmm. Processing, processing. Okay, there we go. Let me turn my phone off. It's 11:11 a.m. on. Wait, what is the palindrome? Numerology of today is 1202021. What a fine time to be on Facebook. As you may or may not know, I have been on hiatus. I've been focusing on my health. My good morning, Mike. Love you, buddy. I've been focusing on my mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical health. I'm turning off my phone right now. And other than literally just to be on here at 11:11 on 1202021, that's like my sole motivation. What we're going to talk about today is totally up to spirit. How you doing, Mike? Um, so also, this is my moving forward series. So every Wednesday, and mind you, I just took a couple weeks off, but every Wednesday I get on at 11:11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time to talk about moving forward. That's the name of the series. Um, and today I wanted to talk specifically about our kids. So anybody out there who has kids, um, I'm glad, dude. Good to hear. So anybody who has kids, one thing occurred to me. I don't know if you've ever come to my Soul Root Alchemy class. Oh, happy to see you too, guys. If you don't know Mike Melroy, you're missing out. He's an awesome human being. Um, so I don't know if you guys have ever been to my Soul Root Alchemy class. It's on my podcast. It was what I did on the Teach Peace tour. Um, and what we teach is how to transmute negativity into positivity, right? This is what alchemy is turning lead into gold. Lead is this heavy, poisonous, almost useless, right, thing that if you carry it around long enough, it will kill you. And gold is this beautiful, valuable, malleable, precious metal that is, I mean, it was valuable before we had an economy. It was valuable during the Egyptian times. It's valuable now, and it'll be valuable later. And so the transmutation of negative into positive energy is the energetic or metaphysical version of alchemy. The old school alchemy was people trying to literally turn lead into gold, which would be convenient. But this is more about transmutation. And what's interesting is that the word transmutation is actually it's actually a scientific term. So is sacred geometry, believe it or not. Isn't that weird? That's not a religious or spiritual term. Sacred geometry was actually first coined by scientists, which is strange. Um, Transmutation. So Einstein talked about how energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can only transform. And as humans with consciousness, with the ability to understand our own vibration, we have the ability to uh, consciously shift it. Like by changing our mindset, it changes our vibration. It transmutes energy. By changing our emotional state, by changing on what we focus on, we can literally change the nature of the energy inside of us. And so, like if you're a crystal guy like me, you know, these guys, they're cool, but they hold a single vibration, right? Whatever vibration they were born into. Now, some may say that quartz is programmable, you know, possible. But let's say you're talking about an amethyst or a citrine, right? Or a selenite, some of my favorites. These have a certain vibration, and they can't just observe themselves and shift the vibration to whatever they want at any one time. But that's just, they are in whatever vibration they're in. In fact, let me go back. Quartz, like your watch, quartz in quartz crystals in watches, that's what they use to manage time. Is a quartz watch um, actually is calibrated to the vibration of a quartz crystal. So that, and it's constant, right? That's why they used it. Okay. A human is not a crystal. We share a lot of characteristics with crystals. In fact, there's a lot of stuff in crystals that are in our bodies, in our blood, which is probably why we love them, which is because they're like crystals, and humans have the same material inside of them. And it all comes from stars, okay? But consciously, a human can choose what vibration they want to be in, where a crystal does not. Does that make sense? So, I can choose to focus on whatever is painful or hurtful or frustrating or whatever obstacle that I choose to focus on. I can choose to focus on that, and my mind and my emotions and my body will essentially assimilate that frequency, right? Or I can choose to focus on things that are solutions and are light and are loving and are positive, and my mind, my body, and my emotions will attune to that frequency. So this is where you start to get into like the words like, okay, so consciousness, right? Consciousness is sort of this new agey thing, where it's used to like, they're like, oh, this new consciousness, it kind of, to some people it just means like you're just like airy fairy flighty whatever, but if you look at the real, like the textbook definitions, it's like to be unconscious, to be like knocked unconscious, like in a boxing match. It literally means you're asleep, right? You're out, your lights are out. And to be conscious means to be awake. That's all it means. It doesn't need to mean better than anybody. It doesn't mean you have a higher vibration, than anybody. It just means you're awake. You're just aware. And another word for aware is lucid, right? And, oh, hi, Angie. And even further, lucid means to be clear. So, are you clear right now, conscious and aware of your vibration? Like, tune into yourself for a sec. And if you're driving, pull over. Don't do this while you're driving down the freeway. Are you clear, conscious, and aware of what your, like, F whatever the world is doing right now, okay? Just put that out of your mind. What are you doing? Where are you at? Where's your body at? Is it in a state of ease or dis-ease? Is it in a space of joy, or is it in a space of anxiety? Where are your emotions? Where are your intentions right now? Aw, I love you too. Where are your intentions? Are your intentions right now, are your intentions to destroy, or are they to create? And I'm not even saying that from a state of judgment. I'm asking you, and you got to ask yourself this. I got to ask myself this when I wake up in the morning. This is why I go to the gym so much, because if I am in a state of destruction, it's like I go to the gym, I don't feel like crap anymore, I feel better, and then I'm ready to create. Which, when you're an artist and you're a creator like me, like my entire livelihood comes from intuition and inspiration, being in a creative mode is not only good for my health, it's good for my financial health, right? So tune into yourself, take a couple breaths, and ask yourself where you are. Is your focus on solutions or on problems? And I don't mean to ignore your problems, but being aware of them and then moving through them to wherever the solution is. Here's something, Angie, you're going to love this metaphor. Here's a metaphor I use all the time when I'm doing coaching, okay? And this is mostly when I'm working with other light workers. I assist them with their business, okay, obstacles are that's just part of life, okay? Obstacles are, you got to do, the gym is so important, and yoga, and oh my gosh, even just stretching is better than nothing sometimes. So let's think about this, okay? So obstacles are just a part of life. Challenges are what make us strong, Okay, they help us build character. Um, Now, if you're snowboarding or skiing and you find yourself in the woods, which is like the most fun part, it's the most. This other than, the park is great. Don't get me wrong. I used to be a park rat, but you know, one of the most peaceful, serene, and I'll argue to say spiritual experiences you could ever have is riding through trees. Okay, because you have all the same bliss of being outside, like if you're camping, but you're on this thing that floats the snow. So you're like camping in a race car. So you've got all the fun of like driving this go-kart through nature. It's the wildest experience. So trees are like obstacles. And if you've ever been an instructor, you're going to understand this metaphor even better. Trees are like obstacles, and the path through the trees, which isn't defined, okay? Because none of these, when you go out to the hills and they've groomed, they've killed tons of trees so they could groom the paths, or in some ways, actually, in some places, avalanches have killed all the trees, and that's how you get those runs down the hill. And a lot of the time, that's why it follows the natural curve of the mountain, because it was an avalanche that wiped those out. So you don't have any man-made paths in the trees, right? You have to figure it out. There's 100 options. There's trees after trees after trees. Some of them are wide, some of them are tight. Okay, but if you've ever been an instructor, you know that where you look is where you go. And it sounds so overly simple that it sounds like it's an insult. But you'd be surprised how many people I've had to train when I was a snowboard instructor that had never seen snow in their life. They were like raised in Florida and they're out here because their, company took them to Park City or whatever. You know how many people that I had to physically pick up many times. I was in great shape, by the way. I had to pick them up and hold their hands, and they would look down at their feet, trying to get their feet to do this, which is how you control a snowboard. They're looking down at their own feet. And I'm like, look at me, first of all. And so you have to tell them to look up. Right? This is literally what we just did. We just did this exercise a second ago when I asked you to focus on you and not the world, okay? It sounds so overly simple, it almost sounds like an insult, but it's not, okay? It just shows how powerful your focus is. So immediately get them out of looking at their feet. Why? Because if you look down, you're going to fall down. So the first thing is, okay, we make eye contact. Why? So they're present. Next, where do you want to go? Do you want to go that way across the hill? Okay, good. Stop looking at me. Go that way. Look at your goal. Stop looking down and stop looking at other people. Look at where you want to go. So when you're in the trees, right, there's nobody around. It's your choice as to how you're going to make it through those trees. You feel me? So if you are looking at the trees, you're going to hit the trees. As simple as that. And I've proven it. I've hit so many trees. I've also ragdolled through trees and haven't hit a single one because of, I don't know, maybe my faith in God. I don't know. But the way you start to think when you first start to go through trees is you just see the trees and you freak. And you're just like, oh my gosh, there's all these obstacles that could take me out. Once you learn how to, like, you lean back and you just flow, honestly. You just like lean back, you get your nose up, and you don't have to jerk real hard through powder. You lean and you just barely lean. That's how you traverse all of the obstacles, quite literally. And you're never looking at the trees, you're looking at the white part. You're looking at the snow. Your brain is mapping the path. And you're seeing the exit. Because the other thing you know is if you fall down in the powder, it might be like an hour before you get yourself up, out and out of the powder. Like you know the stakes are really high. If you hit a tree and you don't die and you can get yourself up and out of it, it's quite an investment in energy, right? To hit a tree. And they don't budge. They're pretty, it's like hitting a telephone pole. It just knocks you on your ass. Even if it's just a part of your snowboard, it'll throw you to the ground. So when you have experience, you are aware of the trees, but you're not afraid of the trees. You're aware of them, but you don't focus on them. You focus on the path out. And that's the difference between people who constantly see life as what I can't do and what barriers are in my way and why I can't accomplish something, and all these people that have excuses and all these people that have their reasons for why something can happen. That's the difference between them and the people that find the solutions regardless of how many obstacles are out there. And in fact, as you develop that skill, it becomes fun. Just like when you become an expert rider, then trees are, I mean, we literally go look for the trees. We go look for untracked powder in the trees. That's the best part of the day when you master yourself, when you master your skills. The stuff that other people are afraid to even attempt, you're out there having fun. Because you already know, you have the mindset, you have the muscle memory. You've created enough habits to positively help you get through that every single time. And if you want to bring it to, let's just talk about business. People that are afraid to start their own business, they just see obstacles. And people that are old school entrepreneurs that have been in it for 20, 30 years, they're having fun. They're just surfing, man. They're just smoothly moving through this all the time. And that's the difference between a beginner and an expert. And that's the whole point of self-mastery. If you look at gurus, right? The stuff that freaks out the mass consciousness, everyday people, that scares the crap out of them, gurus think is funny. Gurus laugh at the stuff that everyday people struggle with. They don't laugh at the people, but they laugh at the problems themselves because they've overcome all that. And so if you're an expert in your field, right, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And you might be an expert financial advisor, or maybe you're an expert Olympic athlete. Maybe you've mastered that. Or Mike is a master horse and bull rider. Master farmers. I mean, there's so many things to master. You might be a master YouTuber, right? Think of where you were 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Think of the things you used to scare you then, and now it's just funny. You do that shit before breakfast now, right? The things you used to think were impossible, you now just do. And in fact, you do that. You do those things now, and you do it while you're like raising your kids and driving. It's pretty crazy. But it took a mindset shift. It took focus. It took understanding who you were, where you were going, what was your focus, how do I shift that? If I'm running into these barriers, what's the opposite of a barrier? It's a path. And what we focus on moving forward is going to determine whether we slam into our obstacles, whether we find solutions, whether we're stuck in the woods forever, or whether we find our way out. Really comes down to focus. Eden, the world, it no longer scares me. Good. Eden's a fighter. She's been through some stuff. If you want to talk to somebody inspiring, talk to her. First bull ride, I blacked out. Mike, oh dude, I got a funny story. I got knocked out my third day of snowboarding. I jumped off a 9-foot cliff and landed on my face on ice. And then I woke up. It's the first time I'd ever been knocked out too. And I was like, pick myself up, and there's this black, I just like see this black spot. And it took me about 20 seconds. I was like, oh, and there was just blood, this pool of blood. Did I stop snowboarding? No, literally went the next day. I went to the hospital that night. They told me that I had a concussion, and if I were to hit my head again in the next 24 hours, that I could die. But I had rented my snowboard for 2 days, and if you thought I was gonna waste $20, you had another thing coming. So yeah, and mind you, I'm 15, so I'm reckless as hell. I went out. I did hit my head the next day against some other dude's head. He jumped off this big old cliff and landed within, like, his snowboard landed within 2 inches of mine and hit the back of his head, hit the front of my head. And I think that was the first time I sat down and I was just like, okay, like, this is it. Like, dude, here are the last moments of my life on earth. I'm going to sit here and, you know, check out this mountain and be one with nature. And then, I didn't die. Spoiler alert. Yeah. I almost died on so many occasions though. I almost ran into a moose. And those things are freaking 12 feet tall. Yeah, of course I went back the next day. I'm a Capricorn. We're not smart. We're just tenacious. That's the thing I want to explain to people. I'm not a spiritual guru or a guru of any kind. I'm a survivalist, man. Experts know what to do for the next 100 years, right? I know how to get you through the week. That's about it. And yeah, I'm not that bright, but man, am I tenacious. Yeah, that was my first awakening. You're right, honey. Angie just said. Yeah. So, yeah, almost died so many times snowboarding. I've been in 2 avalanches. I was stuck on a cliff one time with no gloves. Angie would probably remember this because she's known me for like 25 years. I used to ride without gloves, without a helmet, no health insurance, and I used to do big air competitions and border cross and stuff. So yeah, I was on. Me and Death were good friends. Like, we saw each other daily. We never got to hug, but we were close. We were very close. And I was also studying shamanism at this point in my life. So Death had been introduced to me for the first time through shamanism as not as something any sort that wasn't scary. It was just a fact of life, and that the sooner you got in touch with it and embraced the idea, then the sooner you would start making better decisions and stop making fear-based decisions and start asking yourself, well, is this going to kill me or not? And can I survive the consequences? Okay, cool. So then that gave me the power to have a courageous life. I dropped out of school. I lived in a van for 2 years with two guys and a dog. And we just traveled around the West Coast snowboarding and getting into competitions and getting odd jobs wherever our cars would break down. And that was my boy into man growing up story. That was my journey of becoming a man. Was I I looked at everything society had for me. Here I'm about to turn 18 soon. And I'm like, okay, so I can just go become another brick in the wall. Right? I can just go get a job, 9 to 5, and just do what everybody else is doing. Or I can do what I want to do. What would I do if I retired? Well, I would snowboard every day. So I just did that. I circumvented the system. I lived there for like 5 years, and that's all I did. And then eventually, yeah, you know, I did settle down, did have a kid and a wife. And that's a whole other 10-year story. Because then eventually I started my own business, and that begins the whole era of me being an entrepreneur. So here's the thing: snowboarding taught me about life. As I know, as much as people want to believe that we're knuckle draggers, right? That's what they called us. Um, Snowboarding will teach you about life. Being on a mountain will teach you about life. It'll teach you about death. Jumping off a cliff is not smart, but it's worth it if you land on your feet. Life is very much the same way. Our life is only as big as our courage. So if we don't jump off those cliffs, and sometimes jumping off a cliff means starting your next business, sometimes it means taking the next step in a relationship, right? Sometimes it means giving yourself permission to heal from something. There's a lot of scary moments in life where there's really only one way through it, and that's over. It's just off the cliff, you know? And to trust that your feet are going to be under you when you get there, when you get to the bottom. That never stops. And what I learned from jumping off cliffs, snowboarding, that feeling of like, oh man, this is not a good idea, and then you landing and being like, that was a great idea. That kept showing up. And that showed up when I had to start my business. That showed up when I had to become a dad. That showed up when my entire life was destroyed. You know, and I lost I lost my wife to divorce. I lost my family. We lost a son during a pregnancy. I lost a house. I was homeless. Like, and then every day was like waking up and jumping off a cliff. Like, am I going to put more faith and more hope and more strength in this day, even though the last 100 days were terrible? And every day, yeah, you got to do it again. You got to jump off that cliff. You got to have that courage. Your life is only as big as your courage. And moving forward, our kids are going to inherit the earth. They're going to learn from our examples. They're going to learn from what we have to teach them. And as much as we want to be around forever, they're going to be in charge someday. So like what we share with them and what we teach them and what examples we are to them now is going to echo throughout history. And that's something we have to understand, that we are far more powerful than we think we are when it comes to our actions, our decisions, and our words. And as I said in the beginning, my 18-year-old son is going to ask me hard questions, you know, his whole life. And I'm either going to help him focus on the problems and tell him what's not possible, or I'm going to help him focus on the solutions and show him what's possible and pull from my own experience and have to share with him how many times I almost died and luckily didn't, and how many times I wanted to give up and I didn't, and thank God it worked out. And how many times have you thought today's the day? Like, today's the day my chapter ends, but it didn't. Like, miracles are freaking real. They're not just hippie rhetoric, I'm telling you. Miracles are real. But you gotta be aware of where your focus is if you want them to come into your life. Because I believe my agreement with the universe is to come halfway. The universe has not handed me a lot of things. I've had to work really hard for a lot of my things. I've had to sacrifice a lot. But I didn't just get things handed to me because I wasn't doing the work. And I did the work, and then the universe helped me out. And everybody's agreement with the universe is different, so you don't have to just take my model. But the way that it seems to work out for me is that when I come halfway, the universe comes halfway. And when I sit on the sidelines, the universe sits on the sidelines. And I'm like, so what are you going to do? And the universe is like, what are you going to do? It's been a great ride, huh, Angie? So yeah, I wanted to share with you guys just some of the downloads that I've gotten lately and some of the things that have been going on with me. And here's my tip. Here's my practical tip, okay? I have dry erase markers, okay? And I write on my window, or I write on my mirror, my bathroom mirror, okay? And some of you already do this. If you don't do this, try this, because the first thing you do when you wake up is use the bathroom, brush your teeth, okay? The last thing you should do before you go to bed is brush your teeth. Now, do you know what my mirror says? It says, who do you want to be? It's not a list. It's not a to-do list. You know, it asks me a question that rings in my soul. It's like, who do you want to be? It's like, do you want to be a teacher? Do you want to be an accountant? Do you want to be a a servant to the planet? Do you want to be the next Lex Luthor? Your identity and your purpose are tied together. So that's a really good way to start the day. Because every day I say I want to be a teacher. Of course I'm good at making glass bottles. I'm good at making T-shirts and stickers, right? But I don't want that on my tombstone. I don't want bottle guy on my tombstone. It's like I want to be a teacher, and not because I want to correct people, because I like to share stuff. I'm like that kid who's like, dude, you should see this thing I found down at the pond. It's freaking crazy. Like, come check this out. That's what you can tell with my energy. Like, that's what I get psyched about. That's what I'm passionate about. It's like nobody has to tell me to teach. I don't have a boss that's like, yeah, dude, you got to do this by 8 p.m. or you're fired. It's like, I can't help but do it. I can't help but share. I get so many downloads for art and philosophy and ideas of business and marketing. Like, it's just a freaking river of information. And if I don't share it, I'll explode. And you have that too, something in you. There's something in you that nobody has to tell you to do. You just do it. That's probably your purpose. It's probably in alignment with why you're here on earth. What do you want to be? Right? Throw out all of the drama. Okay? Put all that aside. Go back to it later. Who do you want to be? What do you want to do? What is your purpose? Why are you here? Figure that out and then give yourself to it. Yep, who am I? It's 11:44. It's been 33 minutes. That's how I know it's time to sign out. Love you guys. Remember to move forward. Focus on your solutions. Aw, love you guys. All right. Peace out.